Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two, and figuring out just what is going on is always a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are finishing up My Friends by Fredrik Backman. Taylor, I described this book when we were planning as kind of weird, and I kind of think that's true. Not in a bad way necessarily, but this has been kind of an unusual journey.
So I feel like it's hard for me to think about kind of everything that happened because of all like the looping and like how much time actually passed in the span of this book. Like what actually occurred. Sometimes it's hard for me to like think about it because it feels all over the place.
Especially measuring two different times, right? Like we have the modern time where I think very much or very little time has passed overall versus the past where I think we go over a decent amount of time, but I couldn't tell you how much.
I mean, they keep talking about like the summer, but like it's also not just the summer that all of this stuff is happening, right? It's before that, and then also before that, and like it's just a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, definitely interesting book overall. I have some kind of high level thoughts. One thing that I was feeling throughout this book was like, acknowledging that it is a very character focused book and it's about reflection and a lot of emotion. And maybe it's just that I'm a plot boy, but like I did find a certain point, especially early in the second half, where I was really just like, we've been teased about this Yoar thing and like we've been tempted to believe that he's going to die. At a certain point, I was just like, just give it to me. Like I'm ready for it.
I'm a character boy, so we're opposites in that regard. But I wouldn't even call this a character book. Like, it was an emotional book, but it doesn't feel like the characters, I don't know. It's hard to explain because they definitely learned something, but there didn't feel like there was that much progression in regards to them learning something. Like, it felt like somebody would have a problem, somebody would say something poetic, a lesson learned, right? And that was the end of it.
Yeah, almost like reflective, but not, right? Like we're thinking isn't even the right word, but yeah, we're like looking back on these stories from the past and like making observations, but like to really say we're thinking deeply about them feels like maybe it's extreme.
Yeah, because even at the end, and we'll get back to your misdirect point because I do have thoughts about that, but like even at the end, we see this kind of rebirth of older characters like Yoar and Ted, which I think is supposed to be like a end of a character arc. But like for Yoar especially, it doesn't feel like we've earned that change in mentality from him. It's like another instance of Louisa's like, you should try again. And he's like, I guess I should try again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the misdirects, yeah, I feel like it was doing the thing you always complain about, where it was just like keeping information for the sake of keeping information. And it didn't help the plot or the characters because I don't understand why Ted would let Louisa cry about Yoar being dead and then not say, like, actually he's alive. We're going to go see him in like less than a day. Like, it's so strange to me.
Especially for someone who I think Ted, maybe this is like going to get on my whole I don't understand Ted as a teacher thing, but like I'm at least led to believe that Ted has some sort of emotional sensitivity for children. And so to kind of play with her emotions in that way feels wrong for his character and just like wrong for the vibe of the book. Mm-hmm. I honestly think for the most part, like holding off the fact that Yoar is dead for as long as the book did, it didn't bother me as much as some other books do. Like I felt like it did a better job of teetering on the edge, but really like the fact that Louisa has to suffer for it is the part that makes me really not like it again.
Mm-hmm.
There's like truly a bunch of misdirects around this too, right? Like and it's the language that they use about them that makes them misdirects, right? Like talking about the car, like when Yoar like takes his family's car, his dad's car, something like that, right? And he's driving and there's like all this concern about Yoar driving, and like it's kind of starting to suggest that, oh, like maybe Yoar's gonna kill himself in this car by getting into an accident, and then especially so when like they kind of make you think that his mom is dead when he shows up to the house, and like that one even makes less sense to me because then you have all these men from his dad's job like trying to keep Yoar from getting into the house, and it's like, why are they keeping him from getting into the house unless something really bad is in there or something really bad has happened in there? But really it's just that his mom is reacting to his dad's death or potential death anyway. since that's not what really happens. But like, there's just so much language used about that one too. We're like, oh, well, it took us like one blow to the head, and you have no idea who they're talking about in that case. So, it's very much an active choice from the author to be like, we're going to try to like angle this a certain way so that the reader is really hanging on to the last second. And I think it works, but it just upset me more on it upset me with the Louisa thing, like I mentioned, but then it upset me more on the macro level of just like thinking that Yoar died as the reader this entire time and like just waiting for that to resolve and being kind of like, like I don't want to wait anymore, just like give it to me. And then it's like not even that in the end anyway.
Yeah. I wonder if it's also because I don't know how to phrase this correctly. There's something almost unsatisfying about the fact that he's alive at the end. Like,
I think that's true, yeah.
We have this mentality of, and it gets repeated, like this idea that Yoar is going to die young, right? Like they believe that during the summer, that seems to be the energy being exuded. The way the story is told seems to present that way. And then I guess it's supposed to be a shock because he's not dead at the end and he gets this chance to start over because of Louisa or whatever. But effectively, I think at least, he has basically been dead the entire time, right? Like,
right.
He was stuck in the same town, taking care of his father, not doing anything he seemed to enjoy. Like, what life did he have exactly?
Yeah, and kind of like missing from the friend group, right?
Right, like this idea, I don't know, maybe, I don't want to say this would be more impactful, but like, there's something about the artist at the beginning being told, you're gonna make it out of here, and him insisting, you're gonna make it out of here with me. And then that just like never gets to happen. And I guess this book is partially a tragedy, but I don't know. We just set up with that premise at the start, and then it's like, yeah, that is what they did not end up leaving this town together. Yoar got stuck there because he loved people too much. But it's like that's such a shitty existence.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing we're supposed to take is that he never planned to live beyond being young, or like he never planned to have a life because he was either going to be dead or in prison, right?
Right.
And so like then when confronted with life. Then what does he do, right? Kind of what anyone else would do, which is probably just like stick around and figure it out, right? The thing that he doesn't want the artist to do, which is like, I think maybe part of what nags me in this book too is that just Yoar as such a loving character doesn't love himself, and for all of the sort of emotional exploration we're doing of all of the other characters, that doesn't ever really get addressed.
Yeah, that's like a big thing about this book. We've talked about this before. There's just too many characters, and dare I say, too much drama happening.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like we can properly dive into everything that's going on in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and it's difficult. Because I understand why. At least my opinion is, I get why all these characters have these kinds of stories, and like the way that the author decided to like put all of these people together to like relate and stuff. But yeah, like it does. And maybe the point isn't to get into the deep of every single person's story, but at the least with Yoar, I'm like, that feels like missed opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just something about like, it's not even just Yoar that's stuck. It's like every single character, right? That ends up stuck at basically that summer, right? Ted is the same, the artist's the same. Ali is unintentionally the same.
Yeah.
So we just kind of see all these people frozen in time, and it's like, what unsticks them? I guess Louisa, but then the question is like, why Louisa? We get the general, she's one of us, but like, I guess I'm just a Louisa hater. I just did not like her in this book that much.
Oh no. Like, you didn't like her as a character, you didn't like the function she played?
I don't think I liked her as a character.
Gotcha.
Because we talked about this in the first part. She kind of switches between acting either her age, a couple different directions, her age, older, because she's saying some very emotionally deep things, or a child. And then that goes, I guess, for every single character in this book. For some odd reason, they're all over the place. But she does it, and there's some interesting things about her emotionally, like her believing she's cursed, right? And everybody around her is going to die and things like that. But the same with everybody else, that's not really dealt with. Ted is kind of just like, we're gonna stick together, and she's like, okay, I'm healed. And I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know. Is this just me saying I don't think I liked any of the characters in this book?
Oh
If
no.
that's my problem.
Yeah, I mean, because it sounds like a little bit because you're kind of saying their connective thread is this I don't know, wild characterization in a sense, right? Where it's kind of blended, and they all kind of share these traits with each other instead of having kind of distinct features. And maybe they come at it from their distinct way, but they, in a sense, they have the same problems.
Yeah, but and it's not the purpose of this book, but like I'm just never interested in, I guess, the idea that love is going to like heal you, which I don't think necessarily grief is like healed by the end of this book, but
Right.
you kind of get that impression a little bit, like, or at least like a lot of Louisa's insecurities seem to disappear by the end of this book, and there's no like actual reasoning as to why that is. Like, why does she trust these random men? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair.
Anyway, this was supposed to be general vibes, but we got
No, it's
into
okay.
it.
We got into it. Yeah. Well, if we want to get back on track, last episode we talked a little bit about the idea of the tortured artist trope. How are you feeling that played out in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, this ties into a little bit of what we were just talking about. I think this book had a lot of tortured characters, but I don't think we end this book thinking that they have to be tortured to make the best art.
Mm-hmm.
I think the book itself does this because it is presented kind of as a tragedy in like the people that die and just we know something terrible is going to happen that summer. But like Ted actually, I think it's Ted actually says this at the end. I kind of wish he didn't because I would have liked if it was like just indirectly stated within the book itself. But he's kind of like, basically he says something along the lines of like, we were so lucky to have so many nows, like so many happy moments throughout that summer, basically is what he's saying. And you do get that impression when you read this book, like of all of the good moments that happened during like all of that tragedy and stuff. So looking at it broadly, things seemed terrible. The artist seemed tortured. But if you're actually like looking at the details of it, that's not the case. So I don't think they're doing the tortured artist trope, basically.
Okay.
And I think it is good to note that like the artist was very intentional in like painting and creating based on the people he loved. So it's not like he was doing it necessarily to cope with trauma. It was just like an act of love rather. So
Yeah, he's not expressing. It's not like a case of like, oh, like the only way he could really express his true grief was to like, there's nothing like to that depth. And I kind of felt this way about Louisa. I think I said it last time too. Of just like I feel like her art feels more. I want to say narrative. I think I said political last time, which maybe I could stand by that. But just like it's trying to say something as opposed to represent herself.
mm-hmm.
Cockroaches aside. So I think maybe that does help the book dodge it a little bit. Yeah, that being said, all of the artist characters in this book seem troubled in some way. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, everyone in this book is troubled. So it doesn't really make them stick out. They just happen to be doing art. That just happens to be the thing that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And other people do other things. Like Yoar has his own angle. And I mean, Ted kind of does nothing. But like they all have their own responses to their different troubles.
Well, to be fair, Louisa does tell Ted to like write a book. So
True.
That's also kind of art.
All right. Yeah. On the topic of Ted, him and Louisa, and we talked a little bit about her character, particularly with her being childish, like this back and forth thing throughout the entire book, like it became a little tired for me. I don't know if you felt that way too. It felt a little superficial, and I think that was part of it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, like it didn't feel like we got deep in anything, and I think this kind of like, oh, like we're gonna return back to Louisa and Ted and kind of just insert some sort of brief conflict that kind of, I don't know, delays the storytelling a little bit more. It didn't feel super meaningful to me, and maybe because it didn't pay off at the end in any way to me, but it didn't feel meaningful to have them like fighting or like getting into the altercation with the random people. Like there's just a lot of things that happen between them in the second half of the book that don't feel fun.
Yeah, and this does kind of touch on some stuff I brought up earlier, like Louisa deciding to get off the train. It does play into like her insecurities, and it makes sense for her character, to be fair, but yeah, to your point, it doesn't feel like any of that actually pays off. It just feels like for plot reasons, we need to do something, right? Like, we can't just sit on this train the entire time, I guess. We need to add something else here.
Yeah, though I kind of expected to just be on the train the whole time, frankly, so.
Yeah. I guess it's also like nothing brings people closer together than shared trauma. So we might as well put them through something terrifying.
Maybe that was the point. Because, yeah, I feel like I was looking for it. But maybe that's it, right? Yeah, these two very different people who have been fighting, they go through something kind of scary together, and then they're buddies.
Yeah. I will say, like, they're fighting. Sometimes it's fighting, sometimes it's like banter. But banter works best usually when you have characters that know each other, right?
Yeah.
And it just ends up making the banter between Ted and Louisa feel repetitive, feel a bit superficial, and not really work out, I think, because they just met like 2 days ago.
Yeah. It's all very fragile, right?
Yeah.
Like, it can escalate so easily, and like it does, on multiple occasions. Like, there's like one time where he literally yells at her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, this is just another human, Ted. Like, I don't know, it's just like Ted got out of hand a few times, so I was like, Ted's getting out of hand. Like, this feels ridiculous, and I guess in the way that like Louisa walking off the train felt like a thing she would do. Like, it didn't feel out of character per se. Like, I guess yelling at her didn't feel out of character because he's so like uptight, but it's just like then it's like, why? Like, sure, it makes sense, but why do it?
Mm-hmm.
And like immediately afterwards, he has this whole line of like, well, I regretted it because it's an act of violence to yell at a child, which like I kind of agree with. Like, I'm kind of with that. And it's like, why is someone who like is a teacher and works with kids all the time like having that thought after yelling at the kid? Who knows? So I don't know.
Ted blowing up makes sense. I'm actually surprised it didn't happen more often because he like the not even his best friend, like the love of his life just died.
Right. Yeah.
And
good point.
I
Good
feel
point.
like I'm like I feel like he and I guess Louisa towards Fish, like I feel like these people are not dealing with it in any way. Maybe we're just choosing to ignore it, and that's perfectly fine. Grieve how you want to grieve, but the way Ted was like kind of forced to put up with Louisa, and like obviously Louisa is so similar to the artist, like there's just so much happening to Ted specifically, and we just don't get into it enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. Like, I have a section we're gonna get to at the end about like grief and closure, but at the end of the day, like, we don't really deal with the grief of the main characters in the book.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's shift gears to talking now about Yoar, whom I have several thoughts about as well. One that I think was on the more "this bothers me" side of Yoar was kind of learning, I guess, what really does happen instead of him dying, as far as like the group dynamic, because we like know that he's not hanging out with Ted and the artist at the end of the book, and it seems that the reason for this is that he kind of just like socially pushed the artist away. So the artist is like, oh, like, yeah, maybe now that I've done my whole like artist journey, like I'll just like work at the harbor, and yours, like, I'll be having none of that. And like the approach is to just like, it sounds like just be mean to the artist until he's like, okay, like I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, I'm hurt, and like I'm gonna go like do my own thing, which works. But I think I guess I'm like somewhat bothered about the fact that that's how he does it, but I'm really bothered by the fact that that seems to have such a long lasting effect in their lives, to the point where it seems like they mostly don't talk to each other. Like, there's a couple of times maybe towards the end of the artist's life that they talk. We do get the tidbit of like the artist making phone calls to Yoar when he's traveling. So it's not that it's full cutoff, but it's like, wow, like the love that the artist had for Yoar is honestly such a big part of him. And it kind of breaks me to think of the fact that he probably spent so much of his life hurt by Yoar.
It does just feel like we have the past and then we have the present, and we kind of just like blur through those middle years. Like, and Ted, for some odd reason, he is playing the middleman in this situation. So there's like no reconciliation. Like, once the artist actually travels the world and seems happy to do it, like, they don't become close after that. Like, I'm
Yeah,
confused,
yeah.
I guess.
This is maybe another part where it's a little too convenient that they haven't gotten close again.
Yeah.
I think I talked a little bit too in the first half of how Yoar sets the artist up for success and also failure, and that he sets him up for this like artistic and therefore professional success, but kind of doesn't give him the opportunity to reach happiness as a result. And like this really just doubled that thought down, where it's like, okay, not only is the artist going to miss out on the happiness because he's not really the sort of person who takes fame well, but also because he doesn't get your friendship at the same level anymore. Like you kind of took that away from him. So and I hate to put too much pressure on like teenage or very young adult Yoar for not understanding this, but like the idea that there is happiness beyond did you get out of town, did you get a good job, right? I understand why like someone who's between, I don't know, 17 and 21 wouldn't really have a full sense of that, especially with his background. But I just would have, I don't know, I guess I would have wanted to see that fix itself later on with more maturity.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's a little bit, and it's not a problem, it's a little bit of a problem, I guess, to set up this situation and then we don't spend that much time with Yoar.
Yeah, I guess like Yor at the end is really just there to explain everything. It's kind of optimized though. Like yeah, we don't really spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah, like we know kind of that he, not necessarily, I don't even think he regrets it really, but like he obviously feels bad about the distance and he does feel lucky that they were able to reconnect, but only when the artist was dying and all of that kind of stuff. But like, to my knowledge, I still don't know when this book takes place time-wise, but like to my knowledge, they have telephones.
Yes, they totally do. And you know what? This totally takes place in like this time, like in the past decade or something. And you want to know why I know that?
Why?
Louisa talks about TV shows where they make cakes that look like other things.
Oh, she does mention that. I remember
I was like,
that.
oh, we're in the time of the is it cake phenomenon? Can't be that. It can't be that old.
Right. Because, yeah, none of these characters use cell phones at, like, any point.
Yeah, well, like, yeah, Ted had, like, I guess he didn't want to give away that he was going to bring her to Yoar, but he, like, steps away to call Yoar, and, like, in my head, I'm like, oh, he went to, like, a phone booth, because, like, I was forgetting that I already knew the information that this is in the modern time. Very bizarre that we're, like, yeah, totally disconnected from, the worldwide phenomenon of cell phone usage.
Yeah. Circling back to, like, the Yoar not spending time with him thing, though, I guess he's too prideful to, like, actually reach out himself, but it would have been interesting for him to come to terms with the fact that he's wrong, right? Like, he believes in the past that celebrities are all happy. That's obviously not the case. And then I think also this idea of if you leave town, you'll be happy is also disproven pretty quickly when Ali leaves town and then she dies. So, like, there's potential here of, like, Yoar's story in which all of these things happen. His worldview obviously is shifted. But what's the point of me bringing all of that up? I don't know. I just don't feel like Yoar regrets his choice enough.
Yeah. I like that you threw enough in there. He doesn't regret it, and your opinion is he should.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, me too. I just don't, I don't like how that went down. I don't like their long-term part, especially, so I think he should regret it as well.
Yeah, I think, the book just allows him to be a little bit too self-sacrificial than I think is good.
Yeah, I think frankly we're supposed to just put Yoar on a pedestal by the end of the book, right? And be like, wow, like Yoar is so, like, yeah, he sacrificed himself for everyone else. He loves everyone so much. He's willing to like cut off friendship with one of them to make it happen. Like, wow, like what a good person. And it's like, oh, I think it's just like a little bit, and especially what I'm about to complain about next, which is the dad. Like, I think we're really just supposed to see him as like a good, loving person, but I it's not giving him the complexity I think he deserves because he was written with some complexity,
Mm-hmm.
If I can, I'll go ahead and actually do my complaining now.
Yeah, go ahead.
We find out that Yoar has been taking care of his dad, or had taken care of his dad for the rest of his dad's life after what happened. And this whole thing of like, oh, well, like he was kind of a new person afterwards, and like who else was going to take care of him? I don't know. Just like this bothers me that he like spent the next 20 years like still effectively trapped by his father.
I felt the same way. Yeah, I think you were supposed to maybe believe the dad had actually changed. Like, maybe this was his punishment that he has to live like this now. And, now that he's docile, Yoar feels like he can have a relationship with his dad and everything is supposed to be like good now, and it's like, what are we talking about here? Like, this dad was willing to kill both his wife and his son, and
Yeah.
I don't care if his behavior changed. The only reason it changed is because he needs somebody to take care of him.
Yeah, or it was just like literally something happened to his brain, right? Like
Yes.
that totally changed who he was. So yeah, it's difficult. Like I feel like there needed to be something. I don't know how this would happen, which is why I'm struggling. There needed to be some way for the dad to prove himself before, in my opinion, before Yoar should have decided to take care of him. But there wasn't really that. And maybe this is because this is the society we live in. Because frankly, yes, who is going to take care of Yoar's dad, right? And like probably in a legal sense, his mom at least has to do something, right? Because they're married. But maybe if they weren't, like it would be a lot easier to be like, well, he's the government's problem now, right? But I just wish there were some way that wasn't just automatic, that gave more of an opportunity for them to create a relationship that wasn't dependent on dependence.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is there were a few instances where it was mentioned, like, the dad would apologize and he would say, it's the last time I'm ever going to do that. And he would,
Yeah.
like, take his son out to some kind of activity, and it's like they were a real family and that kind of stuff. But, like, the absolute cruelty of attempting to kill that bird, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not just, like, anger,
It
that's
was
the
evil.
devil
It
living
was
inside that
evil.
man.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And like, especially because he was summoned to them by the fact that they were laughing and having a good time.
Right. Like, I just don't think there's any getting over something like that. Me personally, wild
Yeah.
take, I know. This might be delusion a little bit.
Maybe.
Yoar so badly wants a relationship, and what kid doesn't want to be like loved by their parent, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so he got it in the only way that was possible with the kind of father he had. It is giving a little bit of Louisa pretending the postcard is from her mother, I'll be honest. Because there is no actual guarantee that the dad was responsive in any way or actually changed his, like, the way he viewed Yoar, right? That's just what Yoar thinks. Like, that could all be false.
There's a lot of room for projection in a situation like this, I think.
Yeah. But it is some kind of bullshit.
I think this is just, it hits a nerve for me because I think I, in general, and this is a little soapboxy and maybe not 100% related to the book, but I just have this thing, like, in general about the idea of the burden that parents can give you. And, I think in most cases, right, like parents, love their children, they take care of them, they do a lot for them. But I kind of think no matter like how loving your parents were and how much they gave to you, that you owe them effectively nothing because, you didn't ask to be brought into this world. And you didn't ask for the childhood you had, even if it was good and especially if it was bad. And especially when it comes to like parents who are like, well, like my kid's going to help me retire one day, or I'm going to live in my kid's backyard, house or whatever, like all of that stuff. I'm like, that is not a default. That should not be assumed. And I take a lot of issue with that, right? Especially when people try to force our generation to have kids, and they're like, well, who's going to take care of you when you're older? And it's like, this is not a solution for that, right? So I just think in general, I take issue when parents make decisions or do things, and not that this was really a decision from this dad, right, as far as being taken care of by him, but like when parents do things that lead to burdening their kids' lives, and it really just like reduces, I think, a lot of things that parents want for their kids when it comes to like, oh, I want my kid to have a better life, I want my kid to have more opportunities. But like, how effective can those things be if like you need to rely on their money and their time and their space? Like, then it kind of limits them from reaching their full potential and becoming the thing that you wanted them to become. So these are things I've thought deeply about before, about parenthood, and not that it necessarily affects, my own life choices on whether I want to be a parent. Those are kind of unrelated, but like, it's just the thing that I've thought about before. I'm like, yeah, like this isn't how things should be, and this is not how people should think about parenthood. And so this is a little indirectly that, but the fact that his dad kind of becomes a major limiting factor of his life, even after the point where Yoar was trying to free himself from that, like, it really sucks.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It is like a question though, like what does happen in that case, right? Because obviously you have the case of children where they become like a ward of the state.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible situation based on what Louisa and Fish go through.
100%.
But Is there something similar for
Yeah, like
people
an
in old
abandoned
age?
adult.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I would assume yes.
That's a great question, frankly, especially because I assume the answer is different. Well, first of all, it's different depending on what country you live in, and we live in one without universal health care. But we do have a version of universal health care when you hit, 65? When you get Medicare, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I assume there's something in place for elders who are somewhat solo, right? But before that, who knows? Because like, I mean, we're living in a country where there's like a significant homeless veteran problem, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and they also kind of have their own version of universal healthcare. So like, I think it could be dangerous grounds such that like, yeah, he could end up with no one to care for him, and the government might not see themselves as responsible for him if he decides to not take care of him, and that kind of puts him into a corner, and it makes us have to question like, yeah, is it really bad for Yoar to not take care of him or figure something out, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, then also, especially in like America, because we're the most evil country on the entire earth, I'm sure whatever free, basically free care somebody could get would be terrible, right? Like elder abuse is already so bad.
Yeah.
I could not imagine like the free system that people would get dropped off to.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's any good. Yeah, I don't know. This just sucks. Well, that's where it's like too. Like that's why I know I went on my soapbox, but this really isn't like totally their fault that they're in this situation, right? The dad and Yoar. It's society, right? It's the world we live in that doesn't have structures for things like this, and would never put the effort or time or empathy into trying to understand the situation enough that a solution that doesn't require Yoar or his mom to take care of his dad would get used.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially the case in a place like the US, but probably pretty worldwide. I would bet that'd be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's most of the thought. The only other note I had here, which we don't have to say too much about, is just that I noticed that there was a pretty decent overlap between the way that Yoar's mom is described from the youth part of this story, not in the caretaking dad part, but when they're still in bad straits. That she's kind of just described as immature. That's pretty similar to the way Ali's dad is described. It just kind of lands to very different results, right? In that Ali's dad kind of neglects her, and that leads to abusive situations, whereas Yoar's mom is, I would say, quite close to Yoar, but just not necessarily in mom mode, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be fair, most of the moms in this book are pretty good. Like they either are good or they're given like the chance to be good. All the dads kind of suck. Well, except for Kim's maybe, but
well, it sounds like he sucked. No, it sounds like he sucked. I think we just don't see him when he does. I think it was like it was implied suck.
Yeah, he sucked, and he was in the unfortunate situation where he did not know his son, but then once he did, it was like, actually, I suck. It's like, yeah,
right, yeah. He was a quick learner, quick girl.
Yeah.
I guess on the topic of Ali, we talked a little bit last episode about like what is her role in the group, because I was like having trouble understanding that, and we talked a little bit about maybe she's helping like pull Ted into the group a little bit. I'm not sure that really ended up playing out in the second half. I honestly, at this point, the only explanation I can have for what Ali gives to the group is just a counterpart to Yoar, so that way he's like not the only one being the way that he is, right? I honestly don't know if Yoar even necessarily needs that. I think it just like provides an opportunity for like banter and for us to like Yoar a little bit more maybe, but like I think he was not like power hungry in the group or anything like that, you know?
Yeah. I feel like there was something interesting that started to happen with like female characters. And maybe this was happening the whole time, and I've definitely complained about this before, but I don't know if it happened enough for me to complain about it in this book, but there's something that happens with female characters where they end up being two things. One, like the smartest person in the room. Like it's, oh my gosh, these boys are so stupid, right? And also, girls will look at each other while they say that. And there's like this female solidarity that's happening, right? And Ali sure, like, definitely would have gotten into the second bit of that with the solidarity if there was another female for her to interact with.
Mm-hmm.
She does it a little bit, I think, with Christian's mom, but Basically, all that to say, she definitely started to feel a little bit more like a caricature than a character. Just in the way that the headbutting she was doing against Yoar very much played it into the "you're a stupid boy and I'm a smart girl"
Mm-hmm.
type of vibe. At least that's the dynamic I got a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I kind of, when she was introduced, I kind of liked, I don't know, I liked her as a character, and I liked that she was being introduced and had the opportunity to add something different to the group. As the story went on, it was just like, oh, she's just like another Yoar character. I became less interested in her, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that bothers me too is that kind of leaves her as the one female character in that group of people. I mean, we have Louisa as our main character, but if we're looking back at the past, like as the one female character, her role is kind of defined by Yoar and therefore defined by a man in the group. Like I struggle to see her own identity beyond that, I guess, except for the fact that she has kind of her own trauma that she shares, and like it kind of gives the author an opportunity to discuss the effects of abuse and rape and things like that, right? Like that kind of gets a shining moment. But then after that, then what? Like then it really just feels like she's the other Yoar, and so I don't know if that feels good.
Yeah, and two things. One is like even her very name that we know her as, Ali, is given to her by Yoar, right?
Right.
Like we never learn her given name. We don't necessarily need to know it, but the name itself is because of Yoar, so that's just something else that attaches her to him. And then obviously they also had that relationship that was like the only relationship Yoar ever had, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is she does talk about her past, but she's also the one that gets the least amount of, well, is this true? The artist also, we don't get much about his family, like, while we're going through the past. Like, we see a lot of Yoar's family, we see a lot of Ted's family. We don't see that much of the artist, we see a little bit. We see, like, none of Ali's. Like, we know about her father, but we never, like, spend part
Yeah,
of
we're
the
never
story
like in the room
centered.
with him.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
We at least get some like quotes from the artist's dad, like with concern about his son and things like that. Like we get some context there. We just kind of see the results of Ali's dad upon her life, but yeah, we don't. He's not really like a real character.
Yeah, yeah. And so Ali and like how she might be feeling and what she might be experiencing, we like never get to experience any of that. So she does feel like an attachment. It was strange enough that she was brought in late. It's extra strange that she's the only one that dies.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, part of it is kind of like why is she even here?
Yeah, exactly. I think I feel that a little bit. Why is she here other than to like, I don't know, just be like, yeah, this group had a girl in it. It wasn't just boys. But then it's like, yeah, what do we do with her? Like, yeah, we bring her in late. We, I don't know, give her this traumatic story of abuse, and then we have her die young. It's like, okay, like, come on, like this could have been something. And like, I guess this is supposed to explain too, the death is supposed to explain why she's like not really discussed immediately, right? Like how Ted was like Ted held off for a while, right? And we don't learn about her for a while. So I guess it's supposed to be because she's dead and people haven't processed that still 20 years later or whatever that they don't talk about her. But I bet your ass they're not going to do that with the artist. They're certainly going to talk about him.
Yeah. And they do kind of like position her as being very important to the group, but I think the only important thing she does, which ends up not being important, but they make it seem that way at the beginning, is she gives Yoar the knife, right?
Right.
So I don't know if it's Yoar that has the idea or if Ali implants the idea by giving him the knife. Like I don't know if we know the order of those events.
We also don't really know like to what degree Ali and Yar are having their individual like friendship / relationship and like when that really starts. So we don't know what conversations might be happening behind the scenes. To me, the implication is that Ali is giving the knife as the implication that he should kill his dad with it. But I don't know. Like maybe Yor has already expressed by that point that that's what he intends to do. So
yeah, because that kind of changes Ali's character if she's the one that's like, you should kill your dad.
yeah, I don't. Maybe Yor did say it before then, and that's why she's just like helping him out, and like that's a sign of love.
Yeah. And then obviously, I don't know why that's so important if the knife ends up like not being used anyway.
I mean, there was so much focus on the knife for it to not be used, right?
Yeah. Like, why was Ali important that summer? Like, I don't really understand.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not upset about the knife being a bit of a red herring. Like I think that's fine and fun, but like Ali being like kind of I don't know, diminished in the role of the story by that knife not really mattering in the end kind of is a negative downside to that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think overall just like desired more from the inclusion of Ali or a fourth character in the group in general. That just yeah maybe it's the too many characters thing. It just never gets realized.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to close this conversation, we can talk about closure in this book because I feel like there is kind of a thing about that. It's there's some processing of grief. I complain that the main characters don't really get to do it quite totally, but there's some elements that show up. And one of the smaller ones is Ted with his brother. We get to see a little bit of their interaction and them becoming a little more friendly after their father passes away. And I thought this was some good characterization for Ted because he had been, in my opinion, neglected in the first half of the book with his past. But you see him kind of like start almost advising his brother a little bit. Like he's like, oh, like you should really like think about who your friends are, and like also can you tell me a lot about dad? Like they really had this moment to like process together and yeah, and just like reach to a point of what comes next now that our dad is dead. So I kind of liked that.
I agree. These scenes, they did feel a little bit out of place just because I felt like we were going to pass over Ted's brother and like not care about it because everybody sucked in this book. But then, yeah, this all happened and it kind of changed everything. And I think there were some really good scenes. I thought it was interesting to like get that perspective. I can't remember if they say it directly, but it at least gets mentioned of, I think the brother does say it, of they had to know the dad when he was healthy and then he got sick, right? And Ted was lucky to only know him when he was sick.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think that's a really interesting perspective. It also shows like why there might have been some tension between Ted and his brother, but like ultimately they still care about each other. Just like it's a very difficult situation to be in. And obviously we only get a snippet of it, but I think the snippet we got was pretty well done.
Yeah. Though I do think that concept frustrates me a little bit of like, oh, like like there's a thread in there of I knew him better, so I'm hurting more. That maybe I don't love, and like to tell your brother like, oh, like it's better that you didn't know him. It's like, I mean, your brother's probably really wishing he knew him better. Like, why would you say that to him while he's grieving too, you know? But I think these are maybe just like things that I don't know if normal is the word I want to use, but these are things that people say, so I get it, and it worked out, right? Like I don't think Ted took it that way. Ted was acknowledging that he didn't know his dad that well, so it worked out.
Yeah, I think it's that false idea of like you can't miss something you never had, which I it makes like sense logically, but obviously emotionally people still like children will still miss the idea of having a parent even if they've never had one.
Yeah, totally.
But also his brother's also young, right? So
luckily I think Ted lives most of his life not in that way. Like he chooses to love and mimic relationships with people, right? Both with his friends and of course with his students, I'm sure. Like it does kind of show up a little bit with Louisa when he's like, I can't be responsible for you. But I mean, to be fair, like he just lost someone, so that would do something like that to him, right? So but overall it seems like he lived his life in a way where like that idea of like, if I don't know them, I won't lose them. Like I don't think that really was like a core feature of his life. Yeah, I guess another thing too on speaking of Ted and his friends, like we do dodge processing the artist's death in many ways, but at the end we kind of get this whirlwind, I would say, of what we're gonna do for that. In that they decide to do this kind of reverse heist situation again and put the artist painting in the museum in their hometown. I thought this was like cute in one way, but like disrespectful in another way, in that the artist left the painting to Louisa, and like I don't know, do you think he really like he really wanted to leave it? If he wanted to leave it to his hometown museum, he could have. Like, do you think that's really where he wants to be represented? Like I think it's cute for the hometown, it's nice for the hometown, and I don't know, there's something poetic about it, but is that really like true to the artist? Would the artist rather have Louisa kept it? And then there's even the extension of that, which is like, shouldn't Louisa be able to do whatever she wants with it, including like, should Ted have been like, you can't give this to me, because technically Louisa had the right to give it to him. It was her gift. But yeah, I don't know. That's a couple questions, but I'm more curious about is putting the painting in the hometown museum, which was not an explicit will of the artist, disrespectful to the artist.
I think we talked about this a little bit in the first part, but the idea of the artist doing this less so because of the painting and more so to bring Ted and Louisa together.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been the goal. And so I do think that's true. So I don't think he would care about the painting. I honestly don't even think he would care if the painting had been left on the train and they had lost it.
Right.
I don't think he would have cared about that happening. As long as Ted and Louisa and Yoar and Christian's mom and like all of them ended up together and like settled, that would have been enough.
Yeah.
I do think the idea of leaving it in the hometown museum is a good one. For two reasons, I guess. One is I do agree with the sentiment in this book that sole ownership of art is bad for art.
Mm-hmm.
And Yoar emphasizes a lot on you need to get out of this town. This town is toxic. And like it kind of is, but also, you know, what makes a place a home, that kind of mentality. And that is, you know, all of the people he made art for. His pen name was literally for those people. And he met them in that town, right? And his parents gave up a lot to send him to art school. Like, they did care about him, right? So, like, I don't think we're supposed to view this town as evil by the end of this book, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
It's good, I guess, that he's returned to where he's supposed to be, which is, like, where his love is, which is all of his friends.
Yeah, I suppose. I was going to say, I think I take issue with the idea of supposed to be, but, like, as a symbol of their connection, right? Yeah, it makes sense for them to be there. And especially because, yeah, in a way he was trapped there, right? In his own head. I feel like he did end up in the end. I think it did pan out that he was kind of stuck in high school era, right? Like, that's all that. I think he got stuck there maybe because of what Yoar did to end effectively their friendship as it was. And so, yeah, it makes sense for that, especially that particular painting to be where that all started and ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last thing in this sort of category of closure is we do get Louisa's future to some degree, which I thought was interesting. I think a lot of books would dodge this particular exercise, but it seems there's like an emphasis on cycle. And we talked a little bit about the idea of legacy in the first part, and I think this is kind of emphasizing that. We also, like, we get to the point where Louisa meets Christian's mother, who I would say is like really the source of this kind of chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing I really do like about this scene, I will say, is that Louisa seems to be in a much more stable part of life than when this has happened previously.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it happens with Christian, you know, he dies very soon. And when it happens with the artist, he dies very soon for different reasons. But like has had his own like tumultuousness, right? I don't think Louisa is giving this. I don't think Louisa's dying soon. Like I don't think that's the implication per se. She's giving more like I'm a little more put together at this stage of my life where I'm finding this person. And so I think there's an opportunity for something different there.
Yeah. Yeah, there is no impression of like doom and despair happening.
Yeah.
I guess the intention is to show that like she really hasn't changed that much. She's still kind of like unfiltered whirlwind. And I'm assuming she's a famous artist if somebody's driving her around.
Mm-hmm.
But cycle-wise, this did also remind me a bit of, we don't see the scene, but when the artist is traveling and he randomly calls Yoar in like the middle of the night because he's just like so excited about something. Louisa does this to Ted, right? It's like the middle of the night for him.
Right, yeah.
I think. And like she wakes him up and is like, I just had to call you, blah, 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 blah. I guess that's to show that Louisa and Ted like love each other.
Yeah.
He is basically her dad by the end of this book.
Yeah, yeah. It's not as explicit on that as I thought it was going to be. Though I guess there's the one scene where he was like, oh, I'm her father. But like as far as the long run, the long term of it, that felt less explicit. So I'll take it. But yeah, I think that's part of what maybe supports the stability feature too. Is like, oh yeah, like they are talking regularly and like, you know, Yoar and Ted support her life, especially early on with the art school and stuff.
Yeah, genuinely her two gay dads, let me just say.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because why are they both basically her parents by the end of this book?
Yeah, and very different parents at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, with the end, I guess we can do reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I can go first because I feel like I mentioned basically what I wanted to cover in this section. The only thing that really, like, I mean, other than like the crazy coincidences that were happening, is like the only thing that really took me out of this book or made me feel like I couldn't really connect with what was going on was the quotes. I felt like every character had something wise to say, and it just made it seem like these were not real humans speaking to each other. I think even if you have a lot of wisdom to give, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to say it in the most perfect one-liner of your life. Especially because these are very, like, emotional people. I don't like a miscommunication trope, but maybe one would have served in this book a little bit.
Oh.
I don't know. But the point basically is, like, these characters just didn't feel entirely human to me, I guess, because of the way they spoke. I guess because of the wise ways they were speaking, and then also because of the intense ways they were acting, right? Like, everybody was always laughing, everybody was always sobbing. It was just like intense reactions
Yeah,
that didn't
amplified.
always, feel like they fit with what was happening. I think because of that, and this is I don't know, would you characterize this as a character-driven book? Probably, yes.
I would, personally.
Yeah. A character-driven book with no human characters is an interesting place to be, I think, for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I might go with a 3 because it wasn't bad. I think, like, stylistically, it just didn't achieve what I wanted it to achieve.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, yes, with some of the sort of poeticism of the book, I might have brought this quote up before. It would have been a while. There's this idea called, what was it called? I don't know if it had a generic term, but there is this idea from Steven Pinker in this book on music cognition where he describes some music as cheesecake for the ears,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like just the idea that you focus on things that are really like pleasant, but maybe don't have a lot of substance behind them, or like aren't like super interesting, but like it's hard to not enjoy them, right? And I think sometimes some of those quotes can like come off that way where it's like I want this to dig deeper, and it's not like they weren't set up. Like I think the author did set them up to make sense in their context, but sometimes you just get hit with them and you're like that sounds good, but like does it make sense? And I think it's just like missing the making sense part for either for the characters or just delivery, like dialogue wise.
Right.
So yeah, I think that plays in for me a little bit too. It's just like the way it reads, but I feel less of like, how do I put this? I didn't feel like the characters were like not human in that same way, but I did feel like an inability to connect fully with them, and I think that's more, in my opinion, just because there were too many of them, frankly, that were like hopping between. I did want more plot. I know that's not what the book was trying to do, but it just the way it set up the whole Yoar thing, like I started the conversation there for a reason. It's because I was really looking for something a little more satisfactory about that. I think it was a smooth read. Other than it did feel a little slow at times because of that. Outside of that, I think it was a smooth read. Like I did find myself being like, okay, like I'm actually curious to figure out where this is going. What's next? A lot of good like cliffhanger moments given all of the sort of misdirects of the book. And so like I feel like I want to give the author a lot of credit for kind of piecing it together the way that they did. Like I think other books would fail harder on a lot of this stuff. Like I think this book did a better job of kind of teetering on the edge of like there's a reason we're having discussion about these misdirects. Right? Like it's teetering on the edge of like, did this work or did this not land right? And even though I think maybe it did lean that a lot of these didn't land right for me, I think it only leaned that way, right? Like I don't think it was like, wow, like that really I didn't like that. Like that was terrible. Anything like that. So it is feeling similarly, I would say, middling to me. I think what I'm between now, I think I'm between like a 3 and a 3.5, and I might lean towards 3.5 because I think I'm leaning towards being willing to recommend this book, and I'm not sure that's true for most 3s. And that I think there's people who would really get something out of this book and enjoy it. I think like we just tend to be very critical, right? Since we like do this for a podcast, and so it's hard for me to not like notice a lot of these things and be like, oh, this, that. And so I do feel like in many ways I've leaned on the negative side this episode, but I think when it comes to just reading this for enjoyment, like I think overall I enjoyed it. I think other people would enjoy it, and it's just like a matter of setting expectations for what you're getting out of this book. Like, yeah, if you're coming here for the plot, like, slow your horses, right? It's I don't think it's going to be that. But yeah, I think the sort of discussions it brings up, and sort of the quirky characters it has, yeah, I think it's interesting. I actually, and I'll say too, I really did like Yoar, despite the fact that he was a bit self-hating. Like, overall, I thought he was kind of a fun character to learn about. He had a very specific style to him, that was fun to read. And I think when we like returned to him as an adult, I was like, oh yeah, like this is adult Yoar for sure, right? So there's things like that I really liked. But yeah, I don't know, it's all very waffly for me. So I yeah, but I'll give it the 3.5.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like just reading this as a casual reader, there is like a kind of dreaminess to it because of all of its looping. So yeah, I feel like if you were just reading it normally, it would probably be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's get into good vibes. I think for mine, I will say that the audiobook reader was pretty damn good in this book. I think right off the bat, I was like, wow, this is different. She did a really good job with like voices and delivery, and just, I was like super engaged. And I should have pulled up her name and I didn't. So I might look it up real quick, but I just thought like that is one of the best experiences I've had listening to a book ever.
Okay.
Hold on, I am pulling up her name though. Her name is Marin Ireland, and actually she does a majority of his books. So man, maybe I'll have to listen to some of his other stuff just for her.
It might be better because we're not doing a podcast about them, to be fair.
Yeah. I've heard really good things about the other books, so.
Yeah, I have to. For me, do I want to give 2 good vibes? Because I just thought of another one that might be interesting.
Yeah, do it.
One of my good vibes, I guess, is most of the discussions about art we have in this book, I think I agree with, and I like. I think it's sometimes a little bit too black and white, but I think the general idea of, like, art obviously being a way to cope with more negative emotions, that comes up all the time, but also, how do I want to talk about this? I'm like, I have the feeling of what I want to say, but not the words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you talk about art in a way that makes sense? You know what I mean?
I guess that's why people make art, huh?
Yeah. I think the idea presented that art is a showing of one's emotions, the bad, obviously, but also the good, which is clear through the artist and like the love he felt for these people, is very much needed in a time in which people do not understand the arts. And obviously, none of these characters are like perfect people. They're kind of miserable. They're kind of delinquents. They don't do the best things always, but I think they are empathetic people and they're caring people. And the points of capitalism being evil, it seems like a harsh, non-nuanced take, but I think it's a necessary take in the current climate.
Yeah.
In which artists are not being taken seriously, and in which people think AI could ever replicate human emotion.
Yeah. That's a good point, honestly, like as far as timeliness.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other good vibe, which is probably going to hopefully be more succinct than the previous one I just said, is I think the author did a good job of writing this book considering it is so cyclical and it is so looping.
Oh, yeah.
It's so difficult to write something so basically non-linear and repetitive. And obviously some people aren't going to appreciate or like enjoy that kind of style, but I thought it was a very well told story, even if I didn't necessarily connect with it as deeply as I wanted to. I can't even imagine writing something like this because it's so... I can't even imagine his process. That's basically what I'll say. Like, to keep track of everything that you've written and that everything that's in your head and like everything you have to write, it's just like so much to do. But it all worked out, so here we are.
Yeah, I know. I would describe this author as like agile or like delicate. Like I think he's doing a good job of like keeping things balanced and yeah, like managing the cycles. And oh, I had another thing too, but I lost it. But like, yeah, just being able to keep this book kind of in the right exact zone that it needs to be in for what it's doing. And like with the misdirects, that's what it was that I talked about earlier too, of like kind of just like towing the line like right where he needs to be.
Yeah, and then obviously props to the translator as well,
Yeah.
because yeah, this is like a very intentionally written book, and so to translate that to another language is so difficult. I think the translator is Neil Smith, if I'm remembering
I was
right. I don't know
just
if
gonna
you're
look it
looking it
up.
up.
Yeah, it's Neil Smith.
Yeah, so
All right. Well, I guess I have the pleasure of introducing the next book this time.
yeah, I don't have this book, so that's on you.
Yeah, so next time we will be reading The Unit by Ninni Holmquist, up to but not including chapter 14.
And this is also another translated book, right?
Yeah. So this one, it's funny. It's translated, and it's also a sci-fi. I would say that is not too dissimilar in category from Solaris, at least the way that I've interpreted it so far. So yeah, the idea of this one is older as people get older, if they are single or like don't have like a high importance job, they will be placed into these kind of permanent living facilities for the rest of their lives. I don't know at what age, but just some older age. And in those permanent living facilities, they live these really like lavish, nice lives. They kind of get whatever they want, but the point of them being there is that they are going to be used for drug testing, psychological testing, and throughout their lives, they'll donate organs to other folks who need them until they die. And so there's obviously a lot of ethical and moral questions being raised off the bat from the basis of the book. And the main character of this book, Dora, is she starts off really, really like digging it, honestly, like being into it, but things change a little bit when she finds love in the facility. So it sounds like a bit of romance is going to be built in there too, but likely my guess is there'll be a little bit of resistance in this book. So I'll be curious to see the angle on that.
Yeah, there's an interesting conversation possibly about what makes a life important. Like, obviously these are single people, so what, because they're not married, because they haven't had children, they're valued less than other people.
Exactly, right? Like there's a thing in here about who gets set aside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like who's told that they are no longer important enough to continue in society. It's like, oh, okay, you don't have children, so you don't have anyone to take care of, so we can take you. And like, oh, you don't have a really important job, you're not of value to capitalism, right? So we're going to take you and decide that your organs are better off in somebody else's body.
Also, yeah, high importance job. What does that mean? I'm sure the humanities are in the trash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be curious how that's decided. And yeah, and I think there's a interesting feature too to the like, they're given like the best living conditions, right? Like almost as a potentially like a quelling strategy.
Right. But yeah, obviously, if you have any thoughts or theories about my friends or about the unit, all of our socials are in the description.
And please go ahead and give us 5 stars or a like or subscribe or follow or anything else that you can throw our way on your podcast app of choice. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.